Hey everyone, it's Chris at Lyteforce here in my car. Um, yeah. You see, this video is a late. Day late? 2 days late? A little bit late? It's late. And the reason why is I could not figure out for the life of me how to set up my place at home so I could record. Like, my lighting was blown out, the audio wasn't good. I was trying to do maybe too much. Like, I've heard this term called analysis paralysis, where you're evaluating information and comparatively, looking at it, and you spend all of this time trying to almost find perfection that you become paralyzed within the information data. Well, whatever the content creator's version of analysis paralysis is, probably me. And what's interesting is it's not like I don't have ways to record. Like, let's be real here. I could have just said, hey, my audio's going to be good. Let's record with his cell phone, or let's record with my webcam or my laptop. I could have done all that. But then I was like, no, audio isn't what's most important for a YouTube video, is it? Let's make sure your video's good, Chris. Come on. Let's get your lighting set up. Throw up your chroma key. Let's get the webcam the right way. And I spent all this time. In fact, I went to Costco and I picked up a vlogging kit. The ring light with the tripod, this cheap microphone. Like, I couldn't put it to use because I didn't. And finally, and I don't know where it occurred to me, but I'm like, just record something. Get your phone and record. And then I was thinking, well, how will I prop my phone up so that I could record for YouTube? And then I decided that I could use like my cell phone mount, because we have them in our cars. They're mounted to the windshield, and I could sort of, twist the phone so it's in landscape. And that immediately reminded me of my good friend Clay Imoo, who, if you don't subscribe to his YouTube channel, I'd encourage you to check it out. Now, if you're not a Vancouver Canucks fan, a lot of his content might not be as relevant, but fabulous guy, talks to a variety of different people. Absolutely no bias, because he and I had actually started a podcast together. But check it out. It's I think it's youtube.com/CanuckClay, but I'll make sure that you'll see the actual link down below. But he started recording himself in his car. He would often be parked, I think, at work, maybe at home, maybe on the street. Like, I'm not exactly sure where, but he would record in his car, and he would talk about the Vancouver Canucks. Often, I think it was during the day. So he would talk about maybe the previous night's game, set up the next game, or set up the game that would be happening in a few days, talk about a few things. And I suddenly realized, Chris, you could do that. Your idea's great. Get your cell phone, put it up into the windshield, start talking in your car. Let's make it happen. And then I realized I actually had other gear. I picked up, last year, a Pocket 2. It's a DJI Pocket 2 camera. It's like a camera on a gimbal. I'm using it right now. You can't really see it. And I picked it up because I was going to do sort of like a local sort of travel video series. I still have the channel set up, Tow for Travels. I've just never done anything with it. And I thought that I could put this to use. And I'm like, well, geez, here, you haven't used it, might as well. And so that's what I've done. So here I am. It's Chris at Lyteforce on YouTube. That is me. Thank you for tuning in to my very first, albeit late, episode of my weekly sort of, vlog series, journaling, or whatever we might call it. In my promo video that I whipped together, I talked about how we might talk about things like Lyterforce or podcasting, gaming, sports, a variety of different topics. And you'll find that each one of these sort of weekly videos will probably be a little bit of everything. I just want to use this as a way of sort of creatively, outletting energy. Does that make sense? Maybe I want to outlet my creative energy. Whatever. But the point being is it's just to do something that I enjoy doing, and content creation is it. Now, I've been podcasting for a long time. In 2013, I kicked off my Vancouver Canucks podcast, C4, Canucks Hockey Podcasts, shameless plug. And prior to that, though, I participated in what we called CHB TV, Canucks Hockey Blog TV. It was a sort of semi-weekly video series. We only really recorded a handful of episodes. But it was myself, my friend Clay, a few others, and we just have fun, often in the Hog Shack in Steeston, talking about hockey. But I didn't actually do the work there outside of show up and talk to a camera and talk to people across a table. That was all I did. Ed Lau, he was the one who put everything together. He did the video, he did the audio, he did that all. And I was always curious, like, what would it take to go and make something like that happen? But I never actually went through and fulfilled it. And then since then, I've played around with this YouTube channel. Like, if you look back at some of my older content that's still publicly visible, I've actually started to hide a bunch of it. I did sort of like tutorials or instructional videos and such, but you didn't see a whole lot of me unless it was a promo for Extra Life, a campaign that you will hear more about over the course of the coming weeks. But I, again, kind of scratched the surface, but really only with, like, you know, a fingertip-ish. Like, it was like, I don't know, okay, I'm done. And I went on to find something else to do. Well, this channel is going to be more the ability to play around with what I can do and some of the technologies out there to make it happen. Now, if you're looking for the latest and greatest, like visual effects, audio effects, that's not going to be here, at least to begin with. There's many other channels out there that do that. I mean, they're professional content creators. And while I would love to become a professional content creator, financially, it's not something I trust to take care of that mortgage and daycare and putting food on the table and the bills. Like, I'm sure there are some people that do very well, but I would imagine the percentage of those that do very well is so minuscule that the odds are not in my favor. So I figured, hey, don't let that stop you, but don't obviously throw as much money as you can at the situation and hope that you're going to be making bank from the get-go, and obviously all the production that goes with it. Hence why I am sitting in my car recording content here in sunny Tawasin. Although, as you could probably see out the window, it's not so sunny right now. In foggy Tawasin, British Columbia. Now, as far as what I will, as I said, talk about, I talked about Lyteforce, Extra Life, gaming, all sorts of stuff. I thought what I could do is sort of have different sort of segments to provide you updates, because that's really what this is meant to be, is a vehicle to provide you an audience updates, but also to connect to a broader community. And so in that sort of vein, I will provide a Lyterforce update each week. Oh, Lyterforce, you ask? Well, if you watch the promo video, I talked about it being a wellness journey, a health journey, a weight journey. It's hashtag Lyterforce, play off of Lyteforce, my online persona. And I will sort of, again, provide you a weekly update. I'll do that in a quick moment where I'll have an actual segment. But I also thought it would be a cool opportunity to talk a little bit about what I've been up to, talk about things that I've sort of seen and interact with, share some opinions, but also in that broader sense of the community, really think about how I can get to know people better, and they can in turn get to know me. When it comes to my podcasts, whether it's my Canucks podcast, my esports podcast, Ready, Set, Pwn, or even my sort of fatherhood podcast, Nerdy Dadcast, what I love most about each is is the actual communities that have sort of been built around them. C4 probably is the largest community simply because it's the longest running Best Mediocre Canucks podcast out there. But Ready, Set, Pwn has a real healthy community too. And while Nerdy Dadcast is still somewhat, fledgling, myself and my buddy John, we've been putting it together now for just over a year. We haven't really sort of built the community around it per se, but this is something that I'm hoping I can possibly build a community around. But I'm also opening myself up to the vulnerabilities of being online. You, as an internet audience, can obviously say a whole lot. And my hope is that this might inspire someone to go and do that themselves. I am imperfect, as all of us are, and I'm hoping that by challenging myself to be sort of, reveal some of these vulnerabilities, to just do it, someone else will be encouraged. They'll sort of take that charge, and they'll be the next, biggest, greatest thing ever. And that just sort of, I think, ties into my personality or my way of being. Like I'm an adult learning professional when it comes to sort of my day job. And I always think about those that I have had an impact on from a training perspective, a coaching perspective, a development perspective, and how I've helped them grow and evolve and become more as a result of sort of their, relationship with me. When I see things on LinkedIn where someone who I trained or coached has found these new and greater exciting opportunities and wonder, like, did I have a small piece in their success? Because that's the intrinsic motivator for me. Well, coming back to Lyteforce on YouTube, my hope is that possibly within this sort of community that we're going to establish, that you are inspired and decide to do more. So again, I'm going to, wide-whining topics. This is going to be me rambling along. And hopefully, as I say, I grow with this channel. This channel itself grows. The content you receive grows. And ultimately, we just all have fun doing it. And finally, I have been sort of kicking around the idea of possibly, chatting with people. Over the years, I've tried to take my introverted self, which this might seem odd that I describe myself as an introvert because here I am on YouTube. I'm talking to a camera. Like, how is that introverted? Well, I can sort of flip a switch and it's almost like I'm an actor. I suddenly can turn it on. But really, it's hard for me to get over that sort of that anxiety or that need to like hide. And what I'm hoping I can try to do with this is challenge myself to have conversations with people. I'm all about alliteration, but where I was getting at is I had this sort of thing called Conversations with Chris over coffee. It was something that I had sort of started to do with sort of my limited sort of personal network, both professionally at work, but also personally. And I was meeting up with people pre-pandemic where we'd have a coffee or a drink and we'd just catch up. We talk about wide-ranging topics. A few people that I met, we talked about hockey. A couple other people I met, we just talked about things that we had been up to since we had last connected. Because again, the idea about this was just to connect and have these conversations. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to just sort of have a conversation with someone. And maybe if they're amenable to it, just sort of talking about what's going on or talk about a particular topic and obviously, share that here on Lyteforce on YouTube. In fact, maybe it could be in my car. Maybe Clay could join me. Conversations with Chris and Clay in their car. Wouldn't that be cool? But the point is that I just, again, want to use this as a creative outlet, but also to connect with you about things. One of which is #Lyterforce. So #Lyterforce, my wellness journey, kicked off on January 1st, 2022. I've actually used this hashtag many times before. Anytime I sort of kick off some form of wellness or health sort of campaign, I use it. I have not had a significant amount of long-term success when it comes to health journeys, variety of reasons. But I have really made a commitment now to lose weight, become healthier. One, I have a daughter, and obviously I want to be involved in her life as much as I can. And that might be one, being around for a long time, but two, being able to go outside and like chase around and what have you. I need to get healthy to do that. I also recently was told by a medical professional it's something I needed to do. And as a result, I've decided I need to take their advice to heart. And so I've been watching what I've been eating. I've been doing some sort of cardio-related fitness, which is unique for me. I'm not a sort of a fitness guy or cardio guy, even when I was in pretty good shape. But I've seen some good progress. In the first week, so from January 1 to January 8th, I lost, I believe it was 2.4 kilograms. I think. If I was better prepared, I'd know. I'll have the correct number here on the screen. But then week over week, which weigh-in was this past Saturday. I lost another 2 kilograms. So we're just over 4 kilograms lost. Now, why is this a good thing? Well, one, I'm losing some weight. And I believe it's like every 5 pounds that you lose, you add a significant percentage of sort of to your lifespan and to your greater well-being. And so I have lost almost 10 pounds if I'm doing the math off the top of my head correctly. So it's good for me. Now, my goal for the course of 2022 was to lose 52 pounds, 1 pound per week. And I apologize them sort of flipping between kilograms and in pounds. My scale's defaulting to kilograms. I'm in Canada, so I've not changed it. I enter in my weight tracking app in kilograms. And yet the more familiar number seems to be when it comes to weight is pounds, even though in Canada it should probably be kilograms. But hey, that's a topic for another video. And in obviously losing this weight, the 52 pounds, I've given myself a relative head start, right? Like you think about it, I'm almost 2.5, 3 months ahead of schedule. But I'm not taking that for granted. I'm not one slacking off and saying, hey, Chris, just go and eat whatever the heck you want and don't worry about the fitness thing anymore. I am still committed to doing that, because if I can provide myself some serious momentum and sort of build these habits now, they'll become easier as time goes on. And I did see some success with the weight loss journey sort of halfway through 2019 through to the pandemic, where I had lost, I think it was just over 60 pounds over the course of 6 months. I don't know if that's a healthy amount of weight loss, but I had lost a considerable amount of weight. I've since put that all back on with the pandemic. So I'm really looking to obviously drop that if I can. But the idea is then to keep this going into 2023 and beyond. Now, one of the reasons why it kicked off on January 1st, outside of the fact it's so cliche that it's the New Year's resolution idea, is that a gaming community that I'm part of, Stratsco, we've sort of all banded together and are doing a Biggest Loser sort of challenge. And as a result, I thought, okay, I'm going to use this as sort of my tie-in. The weigh-in was on January 1st, so let's make this happen. And so I'm middle of the pack. We're measuring it based on percentage, because obviously we all have a different amount of weight to potentially lose and to weigh in at. So we're just doing a percentage. And I think that helps sort of protect the sort of privacy of everyone's individual weights. I'm middle of the pack, where I've lost, I think it's like close to 3% of my starting body weight so far. And I mean, if you're at home doing the math, I have not any problem about telling you I started off at 183 kilograms, which is, 400 and some odd pounds. I'm pretty sure it's the heaviest I've ever been. I don't want that number. I would love for myself, if at all possible, to get down to the mid to low 200s, maybe even lower than that. Not all at once. I want to do it smart. I want to do it healthy. But having lost the weight that I have, I know I'm back in the 300s, which is important. And I'm going to continue, as I say, this trend moving forward. But the Stratsco gaming community, we've come together and sort of we're all using this as a means to motivate. We're talking about good eating habits, fitness opportunities, just small things. Like, for instance, it's not an issue now, but I used to drink a lot of calories. Juice. Oh, I love juice. Pop, soda. Drank a lot of that. And since 2019, I've generally sworn off of juices and sodas. I may have the occasional cup here or there, but if I have something, it's diet, and even then I try to sort of defer to water. Like, I drink a lot more water than I ever did, which has some other health benefits that I've needed to sort of improve upon based on some of the previous challenges that I've experienced. And, in sharing this, we're just sort of helping each other motivate. But ultimately, as a community, I think it's pretty cool that we've come together and we're all supporting each other. One of the things, though, is that as a community, 2 of the members have committed to provide a donation based on the cumulative amount of weight lost. And that got me thinking, could I do something similar where I could go and translate my own personal success into a success elsewhere? I had originally thought about saving money, like I'd put some money away and in turn sort of celebrate my weight loss and purchasing myself a toy, but it's not like I wouldn't go out and buy other things. And it felt like, do I really need more stuff? Like, do I need a celebratory, new camera or new laptop or new game? And then, thinking that what Stratsco was doing, like, could I instead sort of reward others? And what I've elected to do is for every pound that I lose, I'm going to donate $5 to Extra Life. Now, for those that don't know what Extra Life is a fundraiser that was set up some years ago to contribute money to Children's Miracle Network hospitals through the power of gaming. Now, gaming is still its focus, and you might be thinking, Chris, like, how does weight loss have anything to do with gaming? I'll talk about this in a future video, but I'm actually using fitness gaming as a way to help myself become healthier. I'm using an app called Supernatural. It's actually Supernatural VR, virtual reality, but it's essentially cardio training, and it is a workout. And so I thought it's kind of tie in there. Two, the Children's Miracle Network hospital I support is the BC Children's Hospital and the BC Children's Hospital Foundation. And obviously, as sort of a personal connection here, I myself, when I was younger, had to go to the BC Children's Hospital for a few things. My daughter has been there, and she has been provided the greatest treatment. Now, fortunately, myself, my family, my daughter, we've not had to experience sort of the hospital too significantly. It's there, and it's provided the support that we needed. But there are some kids who obviously receive much greater forms of treatment. And I feel that, children's especially, they need the support that they can to live sort of long, healthy lives. And I think the BC Children's Hospital does fabulous work. So for every pound that I lose, that's $5 to the BC Children's Hospital Foundation. And again, I'm just donating it through Extra Life as my vehicle to give it to them. I made a donation last week. I'll be making a donation this week. I will share that information on Twitter when that donation goes through. And what I was thinking I could do is I could almost have like a little tracker. But I would encourage you, if this is something like, hey, this is kind of neat, first of all, check out the BC Children's Hospital Foundation or check out Extra Life. It doesn't have to be the BC Children's Hospital that you would be potentially donating your money to. If you'd like to donate to my Extra Life campaign to help sort of increase the impact of the money that I am donating, please do so. The link is below, and you'll see it here on the screen as well. But it is a fabulous campaign. You'll hear me talking about it over the course of the next year. There is actually a gaming day where I have in the past sort of live streamed myself playing games, talking to different friends, the community that sort of shows out to try to sort of really focus the fundraising efforts. But this is the first time that I've ever really done this beyond one day where I'm actually focusing on the entire sort of year itself. And then other segments that I thought that might tie in, like, for instance, different sort of topics that sort of pique my interest. There was one actually on social media, and I thought I might talk about it today, but I think I'm going to save it for a later episode. But it had to do with sort of refereeing, and I mean that in the sense of sort of officiating of sport, but from a perspective of both adult but primarily youth officials. I think I'll save that story for a little bit later. And then another thought that I had, and this actually had to do with a podcast that I was listening to, which I would encourage you, check this podcast out. It's called 20,000 Hertz. And it's a podcast that explores different sort of audio journeys. I'm a little bit behind the episodes, but the most recent episode that I listened to was about the sonic branding, so the audio branding for HBO. And the first episode was a week or two ago, I'm behind, a couple months ago. And it talked about sort of how HBO sort of created the sonic branding. if you are of my age and you happen to live in the United States or in Canada, you probably have heard sort of the HBO fanfare, like the full sort of fanfare. There's a sort of a sonic brand where it's like static, and then it goes into sort of what I think it's called the angelic hum, but it's like, anyhow, the sonic brand that HBO has is so significant that I could hear that and I think HBO. And it started, getting me thinking, like, what other sort of sonic branding exists there that is so memorable? I mean, I've actually heard some of it on 20,000 Hertz, and I just want to point it out. 20,000 Hertz isn't all about sort of commercialization. It's just about different sort of aspects of audio. Like there was an episode, I'd say recently, a few months back, that talked about the sounds of Minecraft. It was a pretty cool episode because it got me, sort of into this gaming world that I didn't expect. They had an episode about the buzzer, which is this sort of radio signal that is believed to come from Russia, and it's like essentially a buzzing noise, but every so often you'll hear someone talking. It'll change. There's been classical music, and there's some theories as to what it's about, but it's just, really cool things. Anyhow, this episode, though, about HBO and its sonic brand talked about the evolution of how they've sort of grown their branding from an auditory perspective as technology has changed. Because if we think about HBO when it first went live, it wasn't sort of the HBO that we know today. And it's evolved, but yet while this evolution has taken place, they've still maintained some of what they've built up because the brand is so emotionally connected to an audience. A portion of the episode that I just listened to, they talked about how, I think it was in the year 2000 or somewhere near then, HBO sponsored like a cinema series or a movie series in Washington, D.C., I think it was, where it was like out in the park or something like that. And I mean, movies or movie nights out in the park, these things happen. Well, this one was sponsored by HBO, and so prior to the movie being shown, the entire fanfare, and when I say the entire fanfare, it's an orchestral piece where it's like, I want to say, a minute or two long, started playing and people were cheering. I'm like, this is kind of neat that type of audio and sonic branding has that emotional effect. So anyhow, why I thought I would talk about this is that I was wondering, like, what auditory sort of, sounds or sonic branding exists that sort of has this emotional connection to me. And my first instinct was like theme songs. Because like I could hear a theme song and I'm like, oh, that's a certain memory. Beachcombers. I'm a true Canadian. And if you don't know what Beachcombers is, you got to look it up. It was a long running, I want to say the longest, but I don't know for certain, Canadian TV series. And if I hear the sort of theme, I know that. And I mean, there are other themes like Game of Thrones. I can, I'm picturing the entrance, like there's that type of thing. But I started wondering, like, is there other sort of auditory branding that sort of brings back memories? And the one that sort of was most, I don't know, emotionally stirring, or the one that the strongest memory is actually from hockey. Now, this is not, oh, hey, Chris is Canadian and he's going to talk about hockey. I guess I could. And no, it's not Hockey Night in Canada, the original theme, which I think was called the Hockey Song. So probably another episode down the road. Hockey Night in Canada theme was originally on CBC that we knew of, and then CBC didn't want to pay for the rights. It then went to TSN, and then TSN bought the rights in perpetuity or something like that. Anyhow, but it is hockey, and it's actually to do with the Vancouver Canucks and their entrance. I understand that the song itself is controversial. It's what we aptly would call as Canucks fans, Streets. But the actual title of the song is Where Streets Have No Name. And it's not the entire song. It's sort of the entrance to the song itself, and then it's more instrumental. But I think I grew up in an era with the Vancouver Canucks where they had some success, but then that success disappeared. There was a very dark period of time. I say very, as like 3 or 4 seasons. But when the success came back and they started making the playoffs, there was just this phenomenal sort of sporting energy in the building. And the song that really got people worked up was Streets. The lights went down, the players would come onto the ice, there would be the siren, and then the sort of introduction to Streets would hit, and there was just this buzz. Now, there's obviously reasons why people think it's controversial. Streets have no name. If you listen to the lyrics, it's talking about sort of loss. Be like, you can't win you a song. I don't buy into that too much. To me, it's the emotional connection. But I can remember going to a game. My dad had bought tickets. He had gotten like an ice pack or something like that through work. But he had bought tickets to a game. The Vancouver Canucks were playing the Los Angeles Kings. It was late in the season. They hadn't had much success for some period of time. And as the season went on, the Canucks were sort of in it. And this particular game that he had bought tickets for at the start of the season was if the Canucks won, whether they won outright or in overtime, they would make the playoffs. Like, it clinched a playoff spot. And the building had this phenomenal energy in it. And it was packed. And Vancouver sports fans, they arrive to things late. Like, if this game starts at 7, people are getting to their seats at like 10 after. It's really weird. But the building was packed. People were cheering. There was, like, no one's even on the ice and people are cheering. Like the Zamboni, or I guess in Vancouver at the time they were Olympias, are on the ice. People are cheering. They're so excited. I remember calling my friend Mike and telling him all about it and saying, I wish you were here because it's just amazing. But the moment Streets hits, oh my goodness, it felt like the building popped. And I went to my very first Vancouver Canucks playoff game. The Vancouver Canucks were playing the Dallas Stars. My buddy Mike and I went to this game. And when Streets hit, oh my goodness, the building popped. Now that game was something else. 4 overtime. Lost my voice. I had to go to Calgary the following day for a work trip. It was just like crazy. We'll talk about this, I'm sure, at some other point. And then, as far as the song is concerned, I think it was in 2011. Obviously, the Stanley Cup run that the Vancouver Canucks had, the playoff run, Streets was there. And then there was a game I went to, and I'd had tickets actually for a number of games, and I can't remember what season it is off the top of my head. Again, I should have been better prepared. But the Sedins, Daniel and Henrik Sedin, they announced their retirement. And I had happened to have tickets to this game. The Canucks were out of the playoffs. I had planned on possibly giving them away. My wife and I had gone up to visit the in-laws, and we thought we might stay an extra day. And that meant not being able to go to the Canucks game. But then the day before we were about to leave and visit our parents, the Sedins announced their retirement. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to go to this game. And they had, at this point in time, transitioned away from Streets as an entrance song for, again, reasons. And anyhow, this is their first game since they've announced that they'll be retiring at the end of the season. And lo and behold, the lights drop and Streets hits. And it's just this, like, rush of euphoria, of memories. It's positive branding. Like, it's this emotional connection. This sonic branding that exists ties into the Vancouver Canucks success, but also like some of the memories of the success they've had. I would love for them to bring back, and I'm not necessarily saying like every game. I think it carries more weight and has more meaning if the game matters or means something. And so for the Sedin's retirement and how we had just this sort of short sort of swan song, they played it, I believe, at every home game. When the Canucks make the playoffs, I believe they're sort of played as well. I don't know with the pandemic. Playoff hockey has happened once, and it didn't happen in Vancouver. It happened in Edmonton in a bubble. But the point remains, there's this sort of emotional connection to sound. And I'm curious, sort of for those of you who've tuned in and made it this far in my video, is there some sonic branding that really sort of triggers an emotional connection in you, that's like some good memories, or I know what that is, or whatever? Like, going back to 20,000 Hertz, the podcast, on HBO 2.0, which was their second episode on the topic, they talked to people about what does this sound mean to you? And there was one woman who's like, oh, it's like and it doesn't matter when I hear it or what we're watching, I then do the first sort of notes to the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme, or someone else is like Game of Thrones, and someone else is Sopranos, and how that sort of connects to, HBO. I know that song, but then that song in turn connects to this show. I thought it was really cool. But again, 20,000 Hertz podcast, check it out. So here we are. I'm wrapping things up. I've been talking to my car. I'm in a parking lot. I don't know if people have been walking by. Like, you'd be able to see it. I can't. I might see it and edit, obviously. But, yeah, I mean, hopefully you learned something about me. Hopefully I learned something about me, too. I'm going to go in and post-produce this a little bit, throw it up on YouTube. Again, it's late. My plan is to do this weekly. I hope to have an episode out every Saturday. As again, keyword hope. But I will commit to making these weekly. I'm also going to play around with the channel a little bit. I've been sort of kicking around the idea of doing sort of tutorials or sharing sort of what I call brown bag sessions. I've delivered what I call, again, brown bag sessions professionally. Short little micro learning sessions talking about different topics. And I thought I could sort of play around with that a little bit. I'm just going to have fun here on YouTube. I'm going to create some content. I'm going to share it. Maybe you find value, maybe you don't. But I feel it's going to help me sort of, again, exercise some muscles that I believe I might have, but then from a professional standpoint, help me expand my toolkit. What I do for a living is talking to people, teaching them. And I feel that there are different ways to go about doing that, this being one of them. I also think I might play around with sort of live streaming. Maybe we'll have a live stream Lyteforce on YouTube or conversations with Chris or what have you. Again, there's all sorts of things that I want to do. But if, again, you've made it this far and you have an idea, share it. Is there something you'd like to know? Tell me. Is there a topic you'd like me to talk about? Drop it down below in the comments. The other thing I'm going to ask, like any other YouTuber does, make sure you like and subscribe and ring that little bell so you know when content comes. Comes a-coming. Comes a-coming? Comes a-coming. No, that sounds so bad. When it comes out next, I'm going to work on that. But, yeah, I had fun. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully I haven't scared you off. But one thing I ask, be nice in the comments. It's my first episode. But until next time, have fun. Stay classy. Stay nerdy. We out. All my sign-offs for my podcasts. Catchphrase. That's the other one. Bye.